Hey peeps. Oh, I had a notebook here with all kinds of stuff I was going to talk about and left it back at my trailer. So, anyway, so what this is about is just these times. So, when I say these times, I mean that all this kind of craziness that we're going through these days. And in that, you know, people are asking me my thoughts about why it's all happening. Is there any kind of a shamanic explanation for it? Is there any of this other stuff? And Oh, I don't even know where to begin, right? So I want to go back to a time over the last, let's start at the winter of 2014, right? In the winter of 2014, I was in this kind of a strange space. I was living in southeast Florida, in between Fort Lauderdale and um, Miami area at that time. And I was trying to do these different projects, and it's always felt like some strange energy was happening, and the things would start off really well and then fall down. No bad instances, no bad occurrences, no complaints about things, nothing like that. And then, but they just didn't work out. So anyway, finally, I was just feeling like I was out of the shamanic flow, and I wanted to get back into it. And at that time, I just went to the beach. It was at sunrise. I was up to my waist in water. And I just did this kind of a prayer. It's like, well, you know what? I just want to get back in the jazz. I'm willing to do anything that I need to do to change myself. I'm willing to go anywhere I need to go. You just let me be back in the jazz. I just want to be put back in the flow, be in the shamanic game, and let's go. Like I said, that was like November, December of 2014. In January 2015, I was given a plane ticket to go to the Transylvania part of Romania. And, I just left Miami, sunny Miami, and frozen. Now I'm in frozen Transylvania, looking up at the sky. I'm like, yeah, y'all thought that was funny. Okay, here I am. But that was the beginning of a 4 year, just a beautiful journey. And that was a reset process. In other words, I surrendered into the flow. I surrendered into, let's say, purpose of life, life's mission, whatever you want to call it. And I was just willing to be reassigned, repositioned, whatever. You just like put me in. I want to play. And that's what we have to do now and then is just cut one life completely loose. And we have to go back and say, I'm ready to do this other life. So it's if we were actors, we would just be saying, okay, here's what I got to do. I just got to like go into the here in the same minute. Okay, Hades all the time. And you just have to surrender into the process. And if you really want to rewrite your life story, you have to be willing to do it 100% and take us into the present day. So in that 4 year journey, over the last 2 years, in 2018, 2019, I was really trying to get people to really focus on themselves into a recentering, self acceptance, self truth, and saying that once you really deprogram yourself, you're going to be able to really know the truth about where you need to be. You're going to be having more of a positive personal bearing to be able to be attracted to the things that you really want and really need for your life. And those can often be two very separate things. And be guided to that. In other words, be guided meaning that it's not always a vision or something you hear. Sometimes it's just a sensation and you just follow that. You're driving down the road and we have this joke, yeah, I'm just driving around and you drive like, why am I going here? I don't know. And you're having this conversation with you, and you get to a place, and then a series of events starts to happen that takes you to a completely unexpected yet beneficial destination. And when I say destination, I mean like a positive life change. So that's an example of just being guided into something. What guides you? What guides me? I don't have a total something I can say is an absolute truth on that, other than I learned that if I follow my instinct like that, I'm always good. So has that ever done me wrong? Yes, when I've been distracted, when I haven't really been working in my truth, then these things will distract me, and then I'll end up someplace where I really don't want to be. So that's the polarity of thought. Now, in that, these are some really special times. This is a time when all this craziness happening is, it's so easy to manifest destiny right now. I really mean that. It's a time when we really have to be careful with our subtle thoughts. We really have to be careful with, the things that we're thinking, the things that our desires, our smallest actions. This is a time to be really, really careful on how we run ourselves, pilot ourselves through our lifetime. Now, I don't mean to be like paranoid. I don't mean to like, oh, what if I do this? And what if, not that neurotic, but just conscious thought. Look at your conscious actions, your conscious thoughts, because nothing just happens. When people say, oh, I don't know, it just happened. No, there's always a series of events that lead up to something that happens. Again, in that time period, when I was telling people, particularly it's January of 2019, I was like, you guys, tell all my classes, workshops, my private appointments, this is so important that you get to this point where you're really having this centered in here, because something big is coming. And I think it's coming next year, which would have been 2020. And you need to be so zeroed in, you can look at the TV or read the news and go, yes, that's true, or no, that's total bullshit. And here we are today, almost 8 months into this series, scamdemic, whatever. So there's a lot of other things that are going on astrologically that I just can't get to in this video. Here, awareness. Okay, and in the awareness part, this is also a time when people can really be in touch with nature and make a very strong pledge. And in that pledge, what you would be doing is saying that I want to reset my life. And you look at that as like, you're telling the force of nature, the life force, that I am willing to do whatever I need to do, go where I need to go, be however I need to be, but I want a total reset, reboot of my life I want to be around really good people, honest people, healthy environment, and I want to always know where to be, where not to be when I don't need to be there, but I want to really be in the flow for the benefit of myself, the benefit of the masses, the benefit of nature. I want to live a sustainable life. I want to live a sensible life. Because now's the time when we can really do that. And I mean that like globally. And if you really allow yourself, the conviction that you're willing to change, you can end up in a beautiful place. I mean, I don't mean to sound like some new age flake for like, oh yeah, peace, love, white light, and yeah, you can all come true. No, it takes a little bit of work. But the real work is in the discipline of just not falling back into old cycles or just doing things that are just not positive for you. And that's really not that hard. I mean, it's not like you have to put a big effort into doing something. You just have to put a minimum effort into not doing something, things that are just not beneficial for you. This is a great time, to quit any bad habits and addictions and things like that, smoking, drinking, anything, eating trash, because the one thing that you really want to be a part of during this phase is having a real good conductive unit. So, when they put these spaceships up, they make the circuitry out of gold. They make sure that all the electrical components are the highest conductors possible. When they're building these satellites and they're building this up, it's in like a dust-free environment. People are wearing these suits. They want to make sure that there is nothing in there, that's going to be this smallest possibility of interfering with the highest efficiency of this machine. And this is one of those time periods where we need to do the same thing. We need to make sure that we are in the highest operating condition at this phase. Now, these phases last, sometimes they last a couple of days, sometimes they last a long time, kind of like void of course moons. It could be a couple hours, it could be a few days. So in that, we have to just be disciplined enough to say, okay, I'm just going to get rid of all these bad habits. I'm just going to not go to these places, and I need to really be sure that my energy is in a conductive form where I'm going to get all the information accurately and purely that I want to receive. And in that, you can also process it better and properly store it in your mind. Because it's like if you have a library that's just full of like old fiction, you're not going to be able to put real nonfiction stuff in there. You don't have any room. Clear the shelves. This is a great time for people to be minimalizing life. You want to be able to get life to your simplest form. So now, I also told people before, I said, this is a time too that where you're going to end up with a lot of interference. Because back in the winter of 2019, I was telling people, like, there's going to be a lot happening to really throw you off, to really interfere with your growth, to interfere with all kinds of things. And because the controlling environments, the controlling powers, the people who want to run the world, they want to make sure that you're not aware of stuff. And it's just been that way through the dawn of civilization. You just have these people that really want to push, push, push. So, and these phases, they pass. Right now, as I've told people a month ago, I see an end to this whole scamdemic thing. And I just see it fading out. And if you, it takes a lot of power to uphold and support a lie. And if you're trying to support a scenario of nothing but lies, that takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of resources. It takes so much coordinated effort. And eventually it just wears out and it fails and crumbles. And I was just, a month ago, I was really starting to see the holes in this where it was starting to crack. And now I'm seeing the pieces fall off. And one of the biggest examples is just the other day that Governor DeSantis of Florida said, that's it, we're done. No more COVID restrictions, no more masks, no more businesses. We're opening up. So that's a big move, especially before the winter season because Florida in particular survives off tourism and service industries. So one part of like, oh, it's only about the money. Well, you know what? It's about survival. How about that one? It's also a reality check. We didn't do this for the bird flu, swine flu, tuberculosis, anything else. Nothing. Just this shit. And other shamans, astrologers, psychics, mediums, everybody else on the practical side of it know that this was just a big distraction. And the other part about this, unlike the alignment that happened years ago when the governments decided to start the first Gulf War, our shortest military campaign that only lasted just long enough to distract people from this celestial alignment, this was an earth-based phenomenon. And in this earth-based phenomenon, this is a power that was coming up through the earth. And this was a time when people were just like, could really manifest stuff. I saw people doing the hands-on energy healing work that was just phenomenally effective, really good stuff. But the thing is that the people who can, the puppeteers, they have people like me. Okay, they have their own shamans. With these, we call them the test tube babies that were grown for that purpose. Now that's an absolute fact, and I've met some of them. But the interesting, while these other shamans, the synthetic plastic ones, are highly psychic and great uh, extrasensory perceptions, they have no instinct, no intuition. Intuition and psychic abilities are very different, okay? Because the psychic ability, for the most part, is a separate entity than an earth connection. And the intuition is an earth connection. So it's in a direct communication with the earth that can work with somebody's psychic abilities. It's kind of like you have the antenna and you have the receiver. They're two different parts, but they're kind of like doing the same thing. The psychic people have the antenna, but they don't really have the receiver. And the receiver picks up a lot of things, not just what's in the antenna. So, but anyway, so I can just imagine the oh fuck factor that happened when um, when these things started happening this past summer with the people, with the puppeteers, because their people didn't see this coming. It's easy to see the celestial events. You can see, oh, we're going to have a lineup. We can plan these things coming in, and we can, here's the distractions that we're going to do. When it's an earth-based thing, it just like pulses up like a new spring of water coming out of the ground, and you look and go, oh, look at that, you know. Well, the biological shamans, we get this feeling like something's going to happen right here, and we keep going by, walking through, checking out an area, and then, oh, look, there's water coming out of this rock. Oh, look, a spring just came up out of nowhere. So we can feel that it's going to come. The average person can do that too if they're really at peace with themselves. They don't have a lot of programming and negative feedback loops going on in their mind, and they can do that. But if people are so addicted to their phones and the social media, and they get into all the fear game and the fear apps and all the microwave transmissions, they're just not going to pick that up. There's just too much static. Here's a good example of that. You know, I live out here in Central Texas on a 10-acre farm. There's a bunch of other 10-acre farms. So you're looking at 500 meters to maybe the next, 1,000 to the next house. So you can hear a conversation happening 500 meters away. All right. If you're downtown in the city, you can't hear a conversation, 30 feet away, because there's so much of this stuff coming in, and it's coming in at different frequencies. It's coming in from the cars, the construction sites, people, all this stuff is being bombarded that starts to interfere with your perceptions and awareness of your immediate environment. Well, the same thing happens on the spiritual level. The spiritual receptors could get in past all the noise. So once you've made that connection and really developed those abilities, you can be downtown and walk right to the person that you're trying to find, walk right to the place you're looking for without your GPS or map, because you've made that connection in here. So this takes over and takes you wherever you need to go. But until you've developed that, you're really subject to influence from the outside interference. So this is why it's really important for people to get in connection like that. So the puppeteers that are running things, they just keep bombarding you with all this stuff that causes emotional provocations, and especially with the fear and the stress. The fear and the stress starts to really lock down the energy fields around your body. Now, the more that static energy comes in, it starts to create this like defensive wall in your aura, and it's not letting a lot of good stuff come in. But what's even worse, it's not allowing the bad stuff to go out. So you're like eating trash and getting constipated at the same time. It just starts to go rotten, very quickly. Right now we're seeing the people, the New Agers, oh, the veils between the dimensions are so thinner. Yeah, nice New Age cliche, but they can't really describe the function of it. Here in a simple form, the variable frequencies are changing enough to where it's like the radio. You can get to that one point where you can listen to two stations at the same time. Now, the person that gets there gets confused by, what am I listening to? I'm listening to music and I'm listening to someone talk, So, and the untrained mind or the person unfamiliar with this phenomenon is going to see this, that is the one band of communication coming into them. No, that's you in between two frequencies. And you have to be able to delineate which one of them is which. Well, if you're unfamiliar with a language, you won't pick up the language part. If you're unfamiliar with what music is or instruments, you won't really understand that part either. You just get this thing of one band of this mess coming at you that you can't understand, so you can't interpret it and make any use out of it. But this is when, like, to survive a chaos, one of the things you have to do is to be able to isolate something. It's like if people are in a hurricane, a tornado, if you look at all the pictures at once, it's like a mess and it can be scary. But you just have to look at one thing, one frame by one frame, just one picture by one picture. Because that's what like a movie is. It's a bunch of single frame pictures moving along at a speed that makes it seem like it's fluid movement. So if you're just looking at one thing at a time calmly, then it's really not a panicked chaos. And this is the time when we really need to do this. So on the reset part, you can go in there and reset yourself. This is not that difficult. One of the things that I really think is beneficial is getting out there into nature. And here's a pledge that you should make, just like I described earlier. If you're serious about the reset, if you're serious about making a huge change, positive change in your life, something that also benefits the rest of humanity and promotes sustainability on the earth, I suggest you make this commitment. And you just tell the forces of nature that, yes, I am willing to do whatever I need to do to change myself to be a positive element in a positive change of truth that works out for me, the rest of humanity, and the earth in general. And I'm willing to do that and keep to that. People think, well, how can that really change anything? And I'll give you a great example of that. One of my favorite scientists, spiritual men that I listen to is, I like the way academics look at the shamanic world, Greg Braden. And he was talking one time about how these geostationary satellites, are around the world studying the Earth's magnetic field. And one day that magnetic field just shot straight up. And they like, wow, that's strange, it looks like it's so much more powerful now. And so they looked out into the sun, they looked at the rest of the solar system, they looked out further in space, and they, what could have possibly influenced this? Found nothing. They looked at the earth. They're like, what could have possibly done this in the earth? Nothing. Okay, let's just look at everything, current events, whatever. It didn't take them long to come up with a aha moment, because let's say at 10 o'clock, they had this huge spike in the magnetic field. An hour before that, hour and a half before that, is when they started televising the first plane hitting the first tower in New York City. Think about this. So right after the news starts going on to every other industrialized nation, finally you could have 1 billion people looking at these videos and going, oh my God, and having that explosive of emotions floating out into just the mass consciousness. And boom, there was a huge spike in the energy of the Earth's magnetic field. Now, okay, you could look at that and like, whoa, you don't really have any scientific facts. No, we don't, because we're not going to have a control for this experiment. What are you going to use? You can't keep taking buildings or planes and slamming them into buildings and see if you can, get another spike in the Earth's magnetic field. No, we can't do that. But even if we can't do that, we also have to say this is probably the strongest, most outrageous phenomenon of a coincidence in recorded human history. And then you would have to think, if this is even remotely possible, wouldn't it be so easy to take all that power, and now that we have this new toy to play with, according to the puppeteers, all we need to do is do things that really work with people and provokes their emotions. And let's study the effects on other forms of energy generated by the earth. I mean, that's some phenomenal power. And then, especially if you have these other phenomenons where the earth activities are opening up for people to tap into that power and manifest their own destiny. Now, if you've got big agendas for the earth and the population, the last thing you want is freedom of thought, freedom of movement, and people and other people able to use this information and energy sources that you want to use. Now, you remember that the puppeteers, The politicians, all the authorities of the world in any country are only a tiny fraction of the Earth's population. So the last thing they want you to do or me to do is really understand what's happening, share this with other people, and help them, especially me or other shamans. They don't want us to help you develop these skills and use this power the way you want to as a free thinking human being. So yeah, hence the next thing we see is lots and lots of censoring on the social media platforms. I don't know how it works in other countries, but a social media platform like YouTube and Facebook, they're platforms. Okay, they have to obey the First Amendment of the Constitution, which is just basically freedom of speech and expression. There's some laws, like you can't yell fire in a theater, you can't do things like that, and for obvious reasons. But for difference of opinion, no, you can't do that. The difference too is a platform is not liable for its content. A publisher, let's say a magazine or something, they're liable for their content, so they have the right to be able to edit and censor the things that you write or submit for publication. A platform doesn't. All right. What's happening with all the stuff? If you have any difference of opinion, shut them down. Shut them down. So these puppeteers want to make sure that your vision of the world is that big, and that's it, because they know that the emotional provocation and energy signatures that go along with you having a revelation or some epiphany, an aha moment, that pulse goes out. The HeartMath Institute, had been studying the electromagnetism that's generated from the heart, the effects that can be registered on instruments up to a kilometer away. I'm not totally into them because they don't have enough scientific backing for me, but I do acknowledge a lot of their work, that you can feel someone coming from their energy if you're connected to that person, or if that person has a really strong radiance of their own personal energy, and that again comes from the self-acceptance, self-truth, and personal bearing. So there, all of these things that are going on, that we look at the negative part, are signs of phenomenal positive parts in there that are just kind of lost in the dust storm, shit storm of the chaos of the moment. So what I really want to do with this video is tell you people that while you're looking around and seeing some crazy shit and some bad times, right under the surface of all that is some of the greatest things that have happened to humanity that I can ever think of. This is the time, people, where we really need to really push back on this system. Go ahead, say your opinions. Don't be scared of anything. Just keep pushing out there. Keep going out there for the information. Keep expressing your points of view. It's your points of view. It's part of living your truth. Remember now, when they get you to with the mask or whatever and the shields, they want to isolate you from everyone else. Remember, it wasn't long ago when the doctor's like, oh, it's a virus. It needs to run its course. Okay, we've had a lot of these in the past. For you guys that aren't old enough to remember it, this is an old story. All right, and we got through all the other ones. Life and everything in it's temporary. The most important thing you do is live your life to the fullest in the moment. Get rid of the fear, guilt, shame about anything else, and just keep moving forward. Again, all this stuff that's perceived as negative stuff are just signs of the greatest stuff right under the surface. All right, we can do this. Here, like I said, Governor DeSantis opened up Florida. People, Americans especially, people look to us as for freedom and all this other stuff, but we need to really bring back critical thinking, complete thought. We need to question authority. We need to question everything. Because, again, as I've said in so many videos, the people who are trying to control us, they still get paid. All right? Nothing's changed in their life. Nothing negative has happened in their life. All right, it's us. It's always us. It will always be us. Take take my challenge, all right? Get into nature. Make that agreement with nature and say that I want to make the change in me. I am willing to make that change. I'm willing to do whatever I need to do to bring myself up to that higher elevation. I don't want to say high frequency because that's destructive. Okay, people misname that. Just a higher awareness, a more visible and clear truth. I'm willing to do whatever I need to do to be that person. I'm willing to make all the changes in myself, my lifestyle, just be totally open to the beneficial parts for me. All right, and I will share these things with other people, and I will make everything in my environment better. I mean, this is so easy. I promise you, this is so easy. I've done so many different phases and changes in life, and the secret was I allowed it to happen. Get out of your own way and don't let anybody else block you. You guys can write me at shamaniclaws@gmail.com. I get to everybody, not always right away because I'm doing so many things. We're going to upload this video onto the website that Eli Glesvaye made for me, blueplanetshaman.com, and I'll do whatever I can, people. I don't make any money off the YouTube. I don't make any money off the blog site. This is how I kind of give back to community, because I want to finish my life in a great world. I've loved the freedom of travel that I've had. I miss traveling around as much as I have been. I want to be able to put my boat in the water and sail the world and do other things. And I want my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren to enjoy the possibility of a lifestyle that I've lived. All right, and I would love to have that for everyone else. So let's all pull together and remember, it will always be us. Catch you guys later.